Picture a man in his early 60s standing quietly at the very bottom of a staircase, the kind you find in a two-story home or outside a subway station, and for one brief second he pauses, not because he is out of breath, but because some quiet part of his brain is running a calculation about his knees, about his balance, about whether this particular flight of stairs is going to feel fine or feel like a warning. Most people never even notice that quiet pause happening at all. They just walk up the stairs and move on with their day, but that half second of hesitation is actually one of the most revealing moments in human aging. Because what your body does on a staircase is almost nothing like what it does on a flat sidewalk. And after 60, that difference becomes one of the strongest predictors of how your legs and knees hold up for the next 20 years. Right now, today, we are going to walk through precisely what actually happens inside your joints, your muscles, your tendons, and your nervous system when you climb stairs compared to when you simply walk on flat ground. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why stairs are quietly doing something important for your legs that walking on flat ground almost never does. Before we go further, if this kind of practical science-based explanation of what is actually happening inside your body is useful to you, this channel, Smart Psychology, puts out content like this regularly. So staying around for the rest of this video and following along is going to give you a much clearer picture of how to protect your legs and knees for the long run. Most people carry around a quiet assumption that walking is basically enough, that as long as they are getting their steps in, their legs and knees are being taken care of. And honestly, that assumption is not entirely wrong. Walking is genuinely good for you. It supports circulation. It helps regulate blood sugar. It is gentle on the joints, and almost anyone can do it. But that assumption misses something important, because being good for you in a general sense is not the same thing as being the specific stimulus your legs need to stay strong as you age. And the difference between those two ideas is exactly what we are going to unpack. Because the muscles, tendons, and bones in your legs do not simply respond to movement in general. They respond to particular patterns of load, particular ranges of motion, and particular types of muscle contraction. And it turns out that a staircase delivers almost all of those patterns in a way that a flat sidewalk never will. Let us start with something most people have never thought about, which is that walking and climbing stairs are not the same movement wearing two different costumes. They are biomechanically distinct activities that place completely different demands on your knees. When you walk on a flat surface, your knee moves through a fairly small range of motion, somewhere around 0 to 20 degrees of flexion during a normal stride, and the forces passing through your knee joint are relatively modest. Your body weight is essentially being carried forward in a smooth, low-impact rolling pattern. Climbing a single flight of stairs is a completely different story. Your knee has to bend to somewhere between 60 and 90 degrees with every single step, and the force traveling through your kneecap and the cartilage behind it can reach 3 to 4 times your body weight, compared to roughly 1.5 times your body weight during ordinary walking. That difference is not small, it is genuinely enormous, and it matters more than people realize, and it means that every step you take on a staircase is putting your quadriceps, your patellar tendon, and the cartilage under your kneecap through a workload that flat walking simply does not come close to. It is not only knee that is working harder either. Your hip and your ankle are also being asked to do considerably more on a staircase than on flat ground. Climbing requires a much greater degree of hip flexion and a stronger push from your glutes to lift your body weight upward with every step, and your ankle has to generate more push-off force through your calf muscles and your Achilles tendon to complete the movement. Walking simply does not demand this level of coordinated effort across all three joints at once, which is exactly why stair climbing is sometimes described by physical therapists as a full lower body movement rather than a single joint exercise, because your quadriceps, your glutes, your calves, your patellar tendon, and your Achilles tendon are all being loaded simultaneously in a way that mirrors real functional strength, the kind you actually need to get out of a low chair, to catch yourself on an uneven curb, or to carry groceries up a short flight of steps without your knee buckling. Now here is where it gets interesting for anyone over 60, because that extra load is not automatically a bad thing. In fact, it is often exactly the stimulus your legs need. Starting around age 30, most people begin losing muscle mass at a rate of roughly 3 to 8% per decade, and that rate accelerates noticeably after age 60, a process researchers call sarcopenia. The muscles that disappear fastest tend to be the fast-twitch fibers, the ones responsible for power, for catching yourself if you trip, for pushing yourself up out of a chair without using your hands. Walking on flat ground, because it is so low intensity and so repetitive, there's almost nothing to slow this particular kind of muscle loss. Your quadriceps barely have to work hard enough to send a strong enough signal to your body to preserve that tissue. Stair climbing is different, because that 90-degree knee bend, combined with lifting your entire body weight upward against gravity, forces your quadriceps, your glutes, and your calves into a much higher level of contraction, which is precisely the kind of mechanical tension that tells your body this muscle is needed and should be maintained. There is also a specific type of muscle contraction happening on stairs that almost never happens during walking, and it deserves its own explanation because it might be the single most important piece of this entire topic. When you climb up a step, your quadriceps are contracting concentrically, meaning the muscle shortens as it produces force, and that is fairly similar to certain phases of walking. But when you descend a staircase, something very different is happening. Your quadriceps are lengthening while still under tension, working eccentrically to control your body weight and prevent you from simply collapsing down onto the next step. Eccentric muscle contractions are known to be one of the most powerful stimuli for building and preserving muscle strength, and they also improve tendon stiffness and resilience, which matters enormously for knee stability as you age. Walking on flat ground essentially never asks your quadriceps to work eccentrically in this way. Your body weight is supported through a much gentler, rolling motion. Going down stairs, on the other hand, is one of the only movements built into ordinary daily life that consistently trains this eccentric capacity, and losing that capacity is strongly associated with the kind of knee instability and increased fall risk that becomes so common after 60. Bone health is the next piece of this puzzle, and it connects directly to why stairs matter so much more than walking for people entering their 60s and 70s. Bone is living tissue, and it responds to mechanical stress in a very specific way, through a principle researchers often refer to as the law of bone remodeling, where bone remodels and strengthens itself in response to the loads placed upon it. Walking on a flat surface produces a relatively low impact, low variability load. Your bones adapt to it quickly, and then essentially stop responding because there is no new stimulus asking for more strength. Climbing stairs introduces a completely different pattern of loading, higher peak forces through the hip and knee, a vertical component that flat walking simply does not provide, and a constantly changing angle of force as you shift your weight from step to step. This kind of varied, higher intensity loading is exactly the type of mechanical signal that stimulates osteoblast activity, the cells responsible for building new bone. After menopause in women, and generally after age 50 in men, bone density naturally begins declining, and osteoporosis-related fractures become one of the leading causes of loss of independence in older adults. Regular stair climbing has been associated in multiple studies with meaningfully better bone mineral density in the hip and spine compared to populations who primarily engage in flat, low-impact walking, and that difference in bone strength can be the deciding factor between a minor stumble and a hip fracture that changes the entire trajectory of a person's life. Let us talk about balance next, because this might be the most underappreciated benefit of all. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death among adults over 65 years old, with public health data consistently and clearly showing that roughly 1 in 4 older adults experiences a fall every single year, and many of those falls happen not on stairs, which people are naturally cautious around, but on flat, seemingly harmless surfaces where the body has grown so unaccustomed to reacting quickly that a small trip becomes a serious injury. The ability to prevent a fall depends heavily on something called proprioception, the internal sense your body has of where your limbs are positioned in space without having to look at them. Walking on flat, predictable ground requires very little proprioceptive effort. Your brain essentially runs the movement on autopilot. Stairs demand constant, active proprioceptive engagement. Your ankle, knee, and hip joints are all sending a continuous stream of positional information to your brain with every single step. Because the surface height is changing, because your center of gravity has to shift forward and upward in a coordinated sequence, and because a single misjudged step could mean a stumble. This repeated, low-stakes challenge to your balance system is essentially training. In the same way that lifting a moderate weight repeatedly trains a muscle, your nervous system is being trained every time you climb or descend a staircase, and that training transfers directly into better balance and a lower fall risk in everyday situations, on curbs, on uneven sidewalks, in the shower, wherever an unexpected surface change might otherwise catch you off guard. There is a cognitive layer to this as well that rarely gets mentioned in conversations about leg health. Climbing stairs safely requires what researchers call dual task processing. Your brain is simultaneously managing motor coordination, visual tracking of the steps ahead, and often some form of divided attention if you are carrying something or thinking about your day at the same time. This kind of layered mental and physical demand keeps the neural pathways connecting your brain to your legs active and well maintained. And there is growing interest in how this type of movement complexity may help preserve motor planning ability with age, something that flat, monotonous walking, precisely because it requires so little active thought, does far less to challenge. In a very real sense, every staircase you climb is a small joint session of physical therapy and cognitive exercise happening at the same time, and you are getting that benefit for free, simply by choosing the stairs over the elevator. If you have been finding this breakdown useful, this is exactly the kind of practical explanation smart psychology tries to bring you regularly, connecting the science of aging and movement to things you can actually apply in daily life. So if you want more of this kind of content, sticking with the channel and staying engaged with videos like this one genuinely helps. There is also a cardiovascular and metabolic dimension worth mentioning because it reinforces everything we have already covered about the legs and knees. Stair climbing burns significantly more calories per minute than walking, often somewhere between 2 and 3 times as much, because you are working against gravity with a much larger portion of your muscle mass activated at once. That higher intensity translates into a stronger cardiovascular training effect, your heart rate climbs faster, and your VO2 max, the measure of how efficiently your body uses oxygen, improves more from consistent stair use than from equivalent time spent walking on flat terrain. VO2 max is one of the strongest predictors of longevity that researchers have identified, and maintaining strong leg muscles is directly tied to maintaining a strong cardiovascular system, because your leg muscles act as a secondary pump, helping return blood to your heart with every contraction. In other words, the benefit to your knees and the benefit to your heart are not separate stories. They are the same story told from 2 different angles. Now, all of this does come with an important caution, because stairs are not automatically the right choice for every single person over 60 without any consideration. If you already have significant knee osteoarthritis, meaning the cartilage cushioning your knee joint has worn down substantially, stair climbing, especially descending stairs, can sometimes aggravate pain because of that 3 to 4 times body weight load, passing directly through already compromised cartilage. This does not mean stairs are off limits, it means the approach has to be smarter. Using a railing for support reduces the load through the knee joint noticeably, sometimes by 20 to 30%, simply by allowing your arms to share some of the work. Starting with a small number of steps and gradually increasing over several weeks allows your muscles, tendons, and cartilage time to adapt rather than being shocked all at once. Paying attention to pain that lingers for more than a day after climbing stairs is an important signal that the intensity needs to be scaled back, while mild muscle fatigue that resolves within a day is a completely normal and expected response to a new stimulus. Anyone with a diagnosed joint condition, a recent surgery, or significant balance concerns should absolutely talk with a physician or physical therapist before making stair climbing a regular part of their routine, because the goal here is building strength and protecting your knees, not creating new problems along the way. People who have had a total knee replacement fall into a slightly different category, and it is worth addressing directly because so many people in that situation avoid stairs altogether out of fear. In most cases, once a surgeon has cleared someone for normal activity after recovery, controlled stair climbing is actually encouraged as part of rehabilitation because it helps restore range of motion and rebuild the surrounding muscle support that protects the new joint. The key word there is controlled, meaning a slow pace, consistent use of the railing, and guidance from a physical therapist about how quickly to progress, rather than either avoiding stairs completely or trying to power through pain without any professional input. Fear of stairs after a joint issue is understandable, but in most cases that fear ends up doing more long-term damage than the stairs themselves would, because avoidance leads to further muscle weakening, which then makes stairs even harder and riskier the next time they cannot be avoided, creating a downward spiral that a careful guided reintroduction to stair climbing can actually help reverse. For most people over 60 without a serious existing joint condition, a reasonable and evidence-informed approach looks something like this. Start by simply taking the stairs instead of the elevator whenever the option is available and the flight is short, maybe 1 or 2 flights several times a day. After a few weeks of that becoming comfortable, consider adding a short, dedicated stair session 2 to 3 times a week, climbing at a controlled pace for 5 to 10 minutes, using a railing if needed, and focusing on fully straightening the knee at the top of each step, rather than rushing through a partial range of motion. Pairing this with basic strength work for the quadriceps and glutes, things like sit-to-stand exercises from a chair, gives your muscles additional support outside of the stairs themselves, which makes the whole system more resilient. The goal is not to turn every staircase into an intense workout. It is to consistently expose your legs to the specific kind of loading, the deep knee bend, the eccentric control on the way down, the balance demand, the vertical push against gravity, that flat walking simply cannot replicate no matter how many miles you log. A simple way to think about progression is in stages rather than a rigid schedule. In the first 2 weeks, the goal is comfort and familiarity, taking stairs whenever they are reasonably available, always using the railing, and paying close attention to how your knees feel the following day. In weeks 3 and 4, once that feels manageable, the focus shifts to consistency, aiming for a short dedicated stair session most days of the week, even if it is only 2 or 3 minutes, because frequency matters more than intensity when you are rebuilding a capacity that has been underused for years. From around week 5 onward, once your legs have adapted to the basic movement, you can begin adding small challenges, a slightly faster pace, a few extra flights, or reducing your reliance on the railing as your balance and strength improve, always guided by how your knees respond. This gradual approach respects a basic principle of tissue adaptation, muscles, tendons, and bone remodel in response to load, but need time between sessions to complete that process. And rushing the timeline is one of the most common reasons people give up on stair climbing after a few uncomfortable early sessions, instead of allowing their body the few weeks it actually needs to adapt. It is worth stepping back for a moment and thinking about why this matters so much more after 60 specifically. In your 20s and 30s, your body is naturally resilient, muscle mass regenerates easily, bone remodeling is efficient, and balance systems recalibrate quickly even without much challenge. As the decades pass, that natural resilience fades unless it is actively maintained, and the frustrating part is that many people assume walking alone is enough to keep their legs strong, because walking is what they have always associated with staying active. The biology tells a more specific story. Walking is genuinely valuable for cardiovascular health and general movement, but it is simply not intense enough, not varied enough, and not loaded enough to provide the specific stimulus your quadriceps, your bones, and your balance system need once you are past 60. Stairs, used consistently and sensibly, fill exactly that gap. They are one of the few pieces of ordinary daily infrastructure that quietly function as strength training, balance training, and bone building all at the same time, without requiring a gym membership or special equipment. Think about that man standing at the bottom of the staircase again, the one from the very beginning of this video, pausing for half a second before he starts climbing. That pause does not have to be a sign of decline. It can actually be the entry point into one of the most effective accessible tools he has for protecting his legs and knees for the next 2 decades, and the only thing standing between where he is now and a strong, more stable version of himself in 10 years is a decision to keep using those stairs instead of quietly avoiding them, a decision that costs nothing, requires no equipment, and is available to him almost every single day of his life, in his home, at work, on the train, in small ordinary moments people walk straight past. If this video changed the way you think about something as ordinary as a staircase, that is exactly the kind of shift smart psychology aims for, taking something you walk past every single day and showing you the science hiding inside it. So if you found this genuinely valuable, subscribing and turning on notifications means you will certainly not miss the next video that could genuinely change how you think about your body, your habits, and the small decisions that quietly shape how well you move for decades to come. Thank you sincerely for spending this time here, and I will see you in the next one, where we will keep breaking down the small everyday habits that quietly shape how strong, stable, and independent you feel for years to come.